Hello and welcome to the Mouse Bloggers, mousebloggers.com. My name is Robert. I am a contributor here. Currently, I'm working on my video for the Moonlight Magic that we experienced over the last couple of days. Right now, what I'm doing is while I'm working on this, I'm going to actually talk to you in regards to my trip that I recently had going down to Florida from where I live. Now, the fun part is that trip was horrible, to say the least. I mean, I've never had so much of things getting in the way in order for me to enjoy a vacation, such as what I've experienced here. So let's go ahead and let's get started on this process. And while I'm working on the videos here, I will just go ahead and talk to you. So pretty much simple. I woke up in the morning, early in the morning, more earlier than usual, say around like 3 o'clock in the morning my time, for a flight that leaves at 5:20 in the morning. So you have to be there really early just to, get up and go. So I got up, got ready. I mean, I had things packed the night before. I worked a full week up till that day. And I mean, I dedicated my time to making sure I had everything packed. So I got everything packed, got up, ready to leave, said goodbye to the family. Went through the process of going through TSA like normal, got on the plane as normal. While I was getting on the plane and pretty much getting myself ready for this flight, I checked the weather at the transfer location. By the way, my daughter's here, so you might hear her in the background. But ultimately, I checked the weather, and when I checked the weather, it was snowing. It was snowing in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and this was the week of April. I'm trying to think of when it was. It was April the 14th is when I took off. So apparently they had issues with the weather previously, and yeah, I mean that kind of hindered everything. And I was like, okay, well, if the weather's as bad as it states, are they really going to be taking in flights? Are they going to take out flights? Well, I'm assuming that the airline knew what they're getting their hands into, and ultimately went on with the flights, assuming that they're just going to fly planes in the weather regardless, which I know planes can do and fly out of snowy weather all the time, just not severe enough to hinder anything. So I flew on Delta, and assuming that everything was all good, I got on that flight. The flight itself was lame, as any other flight like that is. Flew on a MD-90. It's an older style aircraft that's been around since the 70s. No real entertainment on this flight, just try to get to our location. Well, anyways, we get over to Minneapolis, Minnesota area. We're about 50 miles out of the west. And they went on over the air saying, hey, they're having weather issues, that they've ultimately closed down the airport to clean up whatever they can. They're currently plowing the airfield, making sure that any planes taking off or landing were actually going to be in a better situation overall. So we're circling around this area for about, 20 minutes or so. They kept opening and closing it. We kept going around. Finally, the pilot says, hey, we don't have enough fuel to get us to Minneapolis. So we're going to have to divert to Fargo, North Dakota, which is a 30 to 35-minute flight to that location. So they immediately about-faced and went to Fargo, North Dakota. So I was like, all right, well, we're going to have a little bit of a layover here because we're going to have to stop, refuel, and pretty much take off after that, which that was the initial plan. So we landed in Fargo, North Dakota, and when we landed, they got the airplane filled up, ready to go. They had to file up all the paperwork for air traffic control and all that stuff. Meanwhile, the pilot's being sincere and apologetic. It's great that they are doing that, but at the same time, it's not helping. So I had a cheerful mind of it. It's like, no big deal. I'm going to get to my location, or I'm going to get to my next flight. My next flight, I had a layover for 4 hours in Minneapolis regardless. And I was planning on going to a lounge, chilling, not really doing too much. just focusing on what I'm going to be doing in Orlando for that week that I'm there. Well, turns out, a couple of minutes turned into a couple of hours waiting for all the paperwork to come back. So there was that. While we were waiting for that whole situation to come through, the pilot had to go out there and check the airplane once again. So he had to use the stair chairs that are located on the back of the plane. So these are retractable stairs that, in a sense, they come up and down, obviously, so that anybody that needs to get off the plane can, without any use of the facilities from the airport. So they do use that. They went around, checked the airplane twice, made sure everything's gone through, signed off for the paperwork, signed off for the fuel. We're ready to go. Turns out, the stair chairs got stuck. So then we had to go out and, wait around for a little more while. And I mean, we're sitting on the tarmac for about 4 hours at this point. They kept the AC running as much as they can. They kept all the food coming and beverages coming. Great. I'm thankful for that. But it's North Dakota. It's cold out. It's great being on the plane for the little while I was on there. Gave me a little bit more hope that at any moment this can be fixed and we can take off. Well, that didn't turn out to be. They had a contractor come out there to take a look at the situation, and they told him that it was not going to retract. It's not wanting to retract. We're stuck. So they deplaned us and walked us into the terminal, which is great. I'm glad that they did that because, again, sucks to be out there, but at the same time, it's like, hey, I could go in here. We can try to resolve the situation or try to make it better. It only gets worse from there. Go in there. By this time, I've landed in North Dakota about 8:10, 8:15 in the morning their time. And when I finally got into the terminal, it's around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So we get in there, there's a buttload of people. And North Dakota is a small, as much as it's a known town, it's a small town. The terminal itself has about 8 gates. It's an international airport, which I don't even believe because there's no federal agents there at all. It is just ridiculous to even call it an international airport, especially when it's called Hector International Airport. Either way, I get in there. They brought water, juices. They ordered a shit ton of Papa John's pizza. They've done everything to try to keep us comfortable, but resolve our issue. When it came to us getting in there, apparently there was a flight that was leaving at 8 o'clock in the morning that got canceled, going from there to Minneapolis. There's all these connecting flights from Delta that was supposed to go to Minneapolis. That didn't turn out to be. So we're one of 3 airlines or 3 planes that pretty much got delayed or canceled. So they're trying to fix their issue. While we walk in there, we're like, hey, we need to get our issue fixed. And they said, no, you need to call this 1-800 number. And so we did. And because all of us are calling all at once, it's a 3-hour wait. So I had to plug in my phone, let it do its cold music for so long. While we're doing that, trying to get some pizza, trying to get a hold of my wife, who at that time is already flying to Orlando from Seattle. She had a connecting flight and then fly across country. So that was going on, and there's no way of getting a hold of her, so I had to send her text messages and hope she'll see it a couple hours later when she lands. While this is going on, I'm waiting around. The flights earlier got canceled eventually. They were ultimately delayed and then canceled, and then they were put on another flight, and then that got canceled. While this is going on, other Delta flights from all around going to Minneapolis got diverted to Fargo, which then started turning the small little terminal into a crowded area full of people who are just wanting to get to their destinations. So, pizza galore, juices galore, little help to be found is ultimately what I've come to understand of the situation. So 2 o'clock rolls into 3 o'clock. I stand in line. still waiting on hold with the representatives at Delta. Finally, when I get up to the front of the counter, they finally announced to everybody that there is no other hope, no other planes coming in for ours, that they ultimately canceled for mechanical for us and then canceled for everybody else due to weather, and called the need help line, which I've been on hold for 3 hours. So I got my hotel room stay with them, got my free, free cab ride over to wherever I need to go. But yeah, it was ridiculous to be in this situation where I was planning on being in Orlando, Florida, first thing in the afternoon, and it's not happening. So I take my ride over to the Radisson, which is where they got me. Luckily, I was able to get that in because I heard some people didn't even get to go to Motel 6. A lot of people actually stayed overnight in the airport itself. So I'm lucky to even get that. I'm glad I got it. In the meantime, I'm just ready to get out. I was done with Fargo the moment I even got there. But I've actually wanted to visit Fargo for quite a while because I've heard some great things about the price of living, cost of living out there, and the means of the people that work there. They love being out there. So I wanted to see it in a different light than the light that I see it at. But regardless of that situation, I'm not happy to be in Fargo when I'm not wanting to go to Fargo. My main job was to get to Orlando so I could actually start enjoying my vacation. This is not something that I strive to have happen to me. I mean, anybody really doesn't want to be done or put in this situation. I wouldn't even wish this on my fiercest enemies. So I get to the Radisson, check in. I'm just glad to be in a nice warm hotel. It was freaking freezing. I didn't bring a jacket because I expect to land in the, as much as I'm going to be in the Midwest, I didn't expect to be this deep in the Midwest. So there's that. So I get in there. I have no car, a hotel room. Can't get around, can't get anything to eat. I was not even focused on eating at that point. I was focusing on getting my stuff resolved. Still on the phone with Delta at this point for 4 hours. So finally, somebody answers. And when they answer, they're shocked that this situation happened. They said, no, we see you left your location and you landed in Fargo, North Dakota. Ultimately, that flight got canceled, so we're going to try to rebook you. The sooner the better, of course. So, alright. Was placed on hold for about half an hour. Half an hour later, they said, we can get you on a flight tomorrow, the following morning, going to Los Angeles, which is on the other side of the country. And then from there, you immediately jump from one plane to another plane, going to Orlando, and that will be getting you there at 6 p.m. on Sunday night. And I was like, that's the best we can do. Let's go ahead and do it. She said, okay. Put me on hold for another half hour. Finally, she comes back off the line and says, yep, because of the situation, I have to get you over to a specialist who needs to readjust this whole thing since you got canceled off this one flight and onto the other one. So bear with me a moment on that one while I get you on over there. So I was like, okay. So I waited another 45 minutes on hold. 45 minutes comes by and goes by, and then finally she comes back on the line. She says, we cannot do that. That airline has been booked out. We have no more flights coming out of Fargo going anywhere else until Tuesday night. I lost my damn mind. It's one of the situations where you go, are you freaking serious? Nobody's leaving out of Fargo, North Dakota. The only airlines that fly out of there, Delta, American, and Allegiant Airlines. Those are the three main ones that are out of this main terminal. And I'm like, just get me something from Chicago. I'll get myself to Chicago. I'll get myself to Minneapolis. I'll get myself anywhere I need to go to. I just need that last leg taken care of. So there I am in a bind, demanding them to please do something for me to get me sorted out. Even a refund would even help so I can actually buy a ticket somewhere else. And they said, no, we cannot get you a refund. You do not ride for free. You're going to have to take this flight on Tuesday from Fargo to wherever we need to get you to get to Orlando. And that's unacceptable. My vacation was only going to last me until Wednesday anyways. And I was done. I mean, my first day on my vacation was my last day of my vacation, in a sense. And that was not acceptable. So their irresponsibility, or just their response to the situation, was ridiculous enough. I am a card holder for Delta. I pay quite a bit of good money to ride on their planes. You know, as much as it's a big airline, it's supposed to be an airline that's supposed to help people. And they're supposed to, especially in desperate needs, they should be able to work with people who even hold their cards to know that, hey, this is the situation that we're in. So previous to this situation, when we were standing in line at the airport, there was a man in front of me who was a doctor. He was a medallion member of Delta. He immediately got the flight from Los Angeles, or from Fargo to Los Angeles. He was bumped up to that level, was apologized to, and all that stuff. They didn't touch my stuff because I had a connection out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I needed to go to Orlando, Florida, and they just didn't want to touch the situation because of all the hell that was going on. So I understand where that was coming from, but at the same time, I could have easily gone on that flight from Los Angeles, from Fargo to Los Angeles and Los Angeles to Orlando, and that would have been resolved. But that's not the case. They said that's completely booked. All the other flights over the weekend were booked. I should have called in sooner, and that's not the case. I mean, regardless, I was on the phone for 3 hours, and I was one of like many other people who have called in. So there's probably people below me, or that was well after me, who called in, who just didn't get anything, who didn't get any bump ups or anything, and were told, too bad, so sad, you have a good day. And that's where I came from at least Delta's understanding of the circumstances. They didn't give two craps. This thing just happened, and you're kind of just stuck, and you have to deal with it. So no, I didn't take that. I didn't take that to the I didn't want to go any further from there. So I said, okay, look, I don't know what to do here at this point. We're done. I'm gonna hang up the phone and we'll call back later. Called my wife. Finally, she made it in and told her the situation, and she's really upset that that no one's willing to do whatever it needs to take to actually get me to my final destination. Not even on the next day. So I had to go on the internet and try to rely on my sources to try to get me through. I looked online to get to Chicago. I looked online to get to Minneapolis. Just even driving there. No plane tickets allowed because, to be frank, they closed the airport and canceled everything. And that was like, it's a 35-minute flight from Fargo to Minneapolis. It's about an hour to Chicago. But if you wanted to drive, it's 5 hours to Minneapolis and about 9 hours to Chicago, which I would have been happy to just do overnight. I was up since 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, I was dead tired, but I don't care if I have to drive the entire night to get wherever I need to go. So I looked online, spent about a good couple of hours trying to find a way to get me to wherever I need to go. And at the same time, I was also on the phone with Delta trying to get to somebody, but that didn't end up happening. Those lines became so busy that nobody was getting through. So I mean, in Minneapolis they shut down the entire airport. So I knew Minneapolis was just a no-go at all for the day. And all I can do is look up the weather, see what can transpire after that, and try to figure out a way to get the hell out. So I called my wife multiple times. We looked up different agencies to see what we can do as a cheap price overall. And what we came up with was we could rent a car. Oh, I could rent a car. One way from Fargo, North Dakota to Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's about a 4.5 hour drive in the snow. And if I take it easy and leave early, I can get there for my flight. The other flights from the connecting flights over I had, all gone. And even the next following days, all the Minneapolis flights to Orlando were all shut down too. They were delayed and canceled. So obviously that's a no-go on Delta. So I looked up possibly going to Chicago, going to Minneapolis, but I ended up going with Minneapolis as a fair shot to just bring down the time frame, to make it a little bit more easier on myself to just get where I need to go and just go. So I got a one-way car from Fargo to Minneapolis. I grabbed that a little bit later on in the evening, same evening as when I got there. Didn't really get to enjoy the hotel as much as I really should have. I mean, it was only there for like a stay, for like a couple hours. It was mainly there to sleep and just work. So I grabbed a shuttle to the airport. When I got to the airport, I was able to rent the car. They gave me a nice upgrade because they know that I'm going to be driving in snow. So I went from an economy car to a full-size Grand Jeep Cherokee, and they didn't charge me anything for that. And I got the car ready, got me some food finally, went to go work out for the night, and then passed myself out. Woke up 3 o'clock in the morning, Central Time at this point, and got myself ready to go. And I mean, I was packed, ready to go. Everything was done. I was just ready to get out the door. So, got out the door and was heading out to Minneapolis, Minnesota. So, again, my stay at Fargo was short-lived as much as I didn't want to be there. And frankly, it's just something I guess I don't want to ever do in the future. Maybe later on when they start getting real stores in there besides a Walmart and McDonald's. Then I'll come back and check it out. But in the meantime, I don't think I'm going to come back there for a while. So I drove to Minneapolis. One of the big unfortunate highlights of this trip was seeing all the car crashes that were along the way. So I was over by North Dakota state line in Minneapolis when looks like a 18-wheeler stopped and a car slammed into the back of it. And I pulled over to check out the scene, make sure everything was okay. And one person's dead, 2 people are injured. And the truck driver already called for help, and then a couple minutes later, the Minneapolis State Police showed up, and they took over from there. They were able to try to get them going, and I was like, I'm going to be late for my flight. Peace out. But yeah, that was not a fun situation to be in. I tend to help whenever I can, but that was that's a wake-up call. So from there on, I drove as safely as I possibly can because I don't want to end up like them. So it was a nice trip down there, even though it was mostly in pitch black. But one of the big things I do like about Minnesota is how clean their restrooms are. Now, I grew up in the Los Angeles area. I don't like using public restrooms in Los Angeles, unless it's a pay toilet, because then you know that it's supposed to be as clean as it possibly can. But when I went in there, it's immaculate. I mean, I've never seen such a clean restroom at a rest stop at all. I was actually really thrilled that they make sure that it's maintained and it's clean. You would think that if you pull over to a rest stop, you would actually have to like squat over the toilet because you might get some type of herpes or something of that sort. But not in this situation. It's like, wow, it's amazing how clean this this whole thing is. That's the halfway point. The rest of it becomes pretty much uneventful until I get into like the 60-minute mark between us and the airport. Roads were clear. I mean, they really maintained their roads until you get to Minneapolis. And then Minneapolis was just a shit show. When you get to Minneapolis, even just like the county area, you can see clear road, and then all of a sudden just nothing. No plows, no nothing. It is just strictly ice, snow, compacted. And everyone's just bumping around. Trucks sliding left and right, off to the side. A couple of cars flipped over. People are getting out of their cars. And it's like, wow, I can't believe that, people in the Midwest somehow don't know how to drive in snow when they drive in it constantly, especially in the wintertime. All of a sudden they can't do it. But, me, who's from the Northwest, it's not a problem. So, I continue driving, going through all these ones and just seeing crash after crash after crash. I finally get to the airport and able to just drop off the car, get in, and then this is where the real headache comes in. Since there's such a delay in the whole situation, the amount of people going through TSA was ginormous. It's more than I've ever seen in my entire life. It is all the way from one end of the terminal to the next. And the pre-check line was about halfway down. So I had pre-check. So I went through that line and went, screw this. I'm going to do my best to get through here as fast as I can. And it actually was a little bit more of a quicker process, even though it was, not meant to be that way. It's, or in a sense, it's supposed to be that way, but it's not supposed to be, it was supposed to be like a normal TSA situation because it's backed all the way up. But they try to push people through the lines as fast as they can because, yeah, it was backed up all the way to the end of the terminal, which is pretty huge. So my flight leaving from Minneapolis was at 10 o'clock in the morning. I got there around 7:30, 8 o'clock. I was hoping to get to the lounge and maybe just chill out. But what really stuck in my head was that if I go to the lounge, you're only allowed up to a 3-hour period of time. You go in there, the moment you leave, you're done for the day. You can't just go back. So let's say I go in there and I want to enjoy at least an hour, hour and a half of this. Get myself a little junkered, or enjoy a nice little meal for breakfast for free, obviously with the lounge. But and then I leave, and then they delay or even cancel the flight. Now, where am I going to eat? Do I have to really pay out of pocket for this, or do I get to enjoy myself a little bit more before I have to, unfortunately, drive myself back to Fargo, North Dakota for a possible flight that might happen on Monday or Tuesday, because there probably is going to be no more flights coming out of Minneapolis at that point. So that was the dilemma I was in, so I chose the latter and not went in there. And the airline I chose to go with was Spirit. And that's because it was the cheapest one for the last minute flight. And it's an airline I did not expect to be proper, to actually do the right thing and try to get everybody sorted out. I have some bad things to say about Spirit, but in this situation, Spirit is pretty much what saved me at this point. I mean, Allegiant, Spirit, and who was the other one? Frontier and American Airlines. They're still flying out regardless of what was going on. They were still taking a chance to get everybody out. I mean, they've done everything in their power to make sure that there is no delays or cancellations, even though it feels like everybody was being canceled left or right. Delta flights were coming in, but none of them were wanting to go out. None of them were going to Atlanta, Chicago. None of them were wanting to leave. But Spirit, Frontier, Allegiant, they're still taking off. They're still doing everything to get out of the situation, to get people where they need to go. American Airlines was actually trying to get people out. There was 202 delays, no cancellations, and they were flying out. So why is Delta the one taking the blunt of this and saying, we're going to have to cancel our flights? Why? Why is that? What's the main purpose of that? There is no purpose to it. It's costing the company money to cancel flights and delay flights over small weather changes. And it's ridiculous because, why is Spirit able to fly out? Why are all these other airlines getting de-iced and getting out when you're not? So it speaks to the airline itself. We went through the process. It takes a while for it to get de-iced. I was happy to be on an airplane. The moment I saw that, the moment I was able to get on the plane, get seated, I kind of took a sigh of relief, knowing that I'm in a moment there I might take off. There may be a chance that there may be a window where the weather would get bad. The weather was getting a little bit worse, but not enough to actually cancel planes like they did in Fargo or yesterday. But now here I am, ready for takeoff. And we took off. That's when I had a sigh of relief. We got the hell out of Minneapolis. We got out of the situation. We were finally on our way to Orlando, Florida. So, no shocker there. Spirit Airlines is a budget airline. It is mainly there for you to get to and from. You had to pay for bags. You had to pay for all this stuff. But I was happy to pay anything to get out. I mean, at this point, I was about ready to just drive down to Florida and get there around Monday morning, just so I can, say I've done it. I don't need to do this anymore, and I don't have to wait till Tuesday, just to enjoy my trip. But yeah, I mean, it's low. It's supposed to be just for a budget airline, and it's you get what you deserve at that point. But I was happy to take even if 3-hour or 4-hour trip just to get down there, and if it's in pure boredom, so be it. That's fine. So I finally get down to Florida, and the one thing that they mentioned to me was that the weather was getting bad. There's a chance that when we get there, we might have to divert to Fort Lauderdale. And that's one thing I do not want to hear, is diversion. Because diversion caused me to get into the situation I was in before. And the last thing I want to have happen is another diversion. I just want to get to my location, get it done, and move on. So when we get there, thunderstorm did roll in. It did cause a little bit of a backup when it comes to air traffic. We were supposed to land the plane at 2:45 in the afternoon. We didn't get in until 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We spent an hour overhead flying around Orlando like a tease. like a ginormous tease when you can look out and see Epcot Ball in the distance. And, Spaceship Earth is right there, and you're like, I could be there right now. And you're not. You're still, 20 or so miles away flying overhead and going, man, I wish I was there. So, we finally landed. Hard landing, of course, because of the thunderstorm. But it's still a landing, and I'm glad to be in Orlando at that point. I'm glad to be in that situation where I can be done with this entire road trip that should not have even happened. So, Sunday afternoon at this point, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, when I was supposed to be there, 24 hours before that. I'm glad to be there. I got off the plane, went to my rental car. The whole process, just waiting for the bags and stuff, takes roughly an hour, and it definitely hinders my time because I really want to be at the hotel. I want to be able to enjoy hanging out with my family because they're already enjoying a day and a half of parks and stuff. You know, when they get there, they're up and running. So drive over there. You know, traffic getting in there, forget it. Just get me to where my destination is. Be able to enjoy that trip. So that's pretty much my travel situation I had to deal with, getting over it. That's not including the nightmare of actually getting back, which I was able to get back on time and stuff. But yeah, it just adds to the whole situation. So just to kind of give you leeway on the situation, I don't understand Delta. I don't understand how their company runs themselves. I know they're one of the biggest airlines out there, but when you treat customers the way you do, and you pretty much say, "Too bad, so sad. We're gonna get you over there on Wednesday," and I know that representative was as sympathetic as she possibly can, but she was also firm on her decision not to help me. And it is what it is, but at the same time, it really. I don't think I'm gonna fly Delta anytime soon. I mean, at this point, I'm gonna be more reliant on like Spirit Airlines or Allegiant when it comes to especially bad weather situations. I'm never connecting to Minneapolis, Minnesota again. It is just there's just no way. Like I would rather fly backwards to Seattle, Washington, or Los Angeles to get to my destination, knowing that I'm not going to be hindered anymore. But this is becoming the norm now, where travelers get treated like this, and there's no real rights there. I mean, the refund situation. Even when I talk to them now, they're saying they're going to give me a partial refund. That's not acceptable either, because I didn't use your airline as to the best of its potential. I only used it from one leg, which is not even like the full leg. It's from wherever, it's where I took off to where I ended up landing. And that's it. That's not even getting my final destination, and you're still pushing on the idea that you don't owe me anything, that I owe everything to the airline, which is not the case. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'm going to finish up this video here, and I'm going to put this up on YouTube so you guys can enjoy my harrowing experience of what I had to deal with. But hopefully in the future you guys do realize that weather becomes impactful, and that travel plans that you have, make sure that when you're landing into even just a transfer point, that it is proper, that there's a timely manner there. But at the same time, that you're on the right type of airline that's actually going to be getting you out in the right time, in the time frame. All right, you guys, enjoy yourselves, and check out mouseblogger.com for any future postings. And of course, I'll be putting up a video pretty soon here of our experiences at Moonlight Magic. You guys have a good day.